In this video, we're going to generate a basic rig for this character, and which is basically a body on a wheel. And right now, he comes all combined, so we want to uh, separate all the parts so we can do a good rig with it. And we'll just separate them all. So each component has its own individual um, selection. So we need to make sure, first of all, that our character is in the center of the world. At least he is in the middle of it where the rig is going to be created. And we want to make sure that all components have no history and have no numbers associated with them, so that all of the values are zeros and ones, and that all of them are um, clean for us to use in terms of history components or history behind them. So I'm gonna create here a series of joints. I'm gonna split my scene here in two, and I'm going to work on the front view and the side view here, so that I can create the joint. The first joint that I'm gonna create is a joint that's going to be the master joint for um, the um, the root of our character. And the root, it means it's what going the character is going to be balancing its weight. In this case, is the wheel. So I'm going to create one joint right in the center of the wheel, making sure that's right in half of in the middle of it. Let me just make a quick little adjustment here to this model, because this object actually is not exactly in the center of it. So let me just select those. I'm gonna modify center pivot point those objects, and I'm going to make sure that they are perfectly aligned in the center of the wheel. And then I'm going to just modify freeze transformation so the values go back to 0. And I'm going to just delete history one more time. Delete history. That way it's all perfectly clean again. Now I'm going to create a join. So the join is going to be one join using the join tool from my rigging menu set. And I'm just going to click on that. I'm going to just press it right there in the middle of my wheel. I'm going to hit enter. That way the joint is created. And I'm going to leave it there. I just press enter to have it isolated. I'm going to create a second set of joins. And that second set of joins actually is going to be from the kind of waist up. And this one I'm going to start there for controlling the pivoting of the upper body. I'm going to create another one right at the base of the head, another one right at the base of the antenna, and I'm going to just create one last one here at the front of the antenna. So I have those there. Since I'm doing them on the side view, this is creating them perfectly aligned in the center. And I'm going to rename them here. I'm going to call this one, I'm going to call it actually root. I'm going to rename it root joint. This one I'm going to call it waist. Waist joint. Then I'm going to call it neck or head, better head. The next one I'm going to call it antenna. Joint. And the last one I'm going to rename it to simply be element and antenna end. Antenna end joint. Okay. I'm going to also create a duplicate of this one right on the same spot. So I'm going to say edit, and then I'm going to duplicate, and the duplicate I'm going to call it wheel join. And the reason for that is because those two are going to work on the same place, but they're going to have different functions. Now, after I have duplicated that one, I can make the waist a child of the root. I'm going to press the P key on my keyboard. That way, this chain connects all from the bottom. That's going to control from the center of balance of my object, and then I can be able to control the wheel separately. Okay, now I'm going to create joints for the arms. So in this case, I'm going to create a joint precisely on the placement of the pivoting where those parts are going to be moving. Just the same way I created this one where the placement of those parts would be pivoting or moving. I'm going to do the same thing on the front view for the arm. So I'm going to create one right in the center of that ball joint. I'm going to press another one right in the center of the second ball joint. And then my character doesn't have a read hand, but I'm going to just press one here and leave it there. I don't have a hand or the fingers already bent, so it's a rigid structure there. And of course, I need to move those to the placement where they need to be in the center of the rig. Right now, they are far in front. So probably I should just go to the top view and try to align them the best I can in the center of the arm. There it is. So that's an okay job there. And now I'm going to use to rename those joints of the arm. So this is going to be left underscore shoulder, left underscore elbow, and the last one is going to be left underscore wrist. Okay, so and those are just right there. And I'm going to just to mirror them over to the other side so I can have it precisely aligned. And for that, I need to change to my rigging menu set here. I'm going to go under skeleton. I'm going to say mirror joints. I'm going to open up the options for that. I'm going to mirror across, in this case would be the Y and the Z. So it would be the Y and the Z. And I'm going to search for the letter L. I'm going to replace it with the letter R. So L from left, R right. I'm going to mirror that. That way those joints match perfectly the location and the orientation. So now I can say, okay, well, these ones can perfectly connect to the body one. So press P to parent it, and then we just do this one to the main body P. Since I don't have any movement in the center of the body, I'm okay. I don't need to worry about creating anything else there. I have a basic chain of joints, arms and root, and I have a wheel that is completely separate. Now we are going to create a series of controllers. So let me actually name my file because I have not named it. I'm going to just increment and save my file. There is, I had a name, but I didn't save it. Okay, so I'm going to create controllers for it. And the idea with the controllers is that we make them to animate the controllers. We never animate joints or we don't animate geometry. Always is the controllers. So, and that's what the rig is all about. So I'm going to start by creating a master control that's going to be above everything. I'm going to just create a curve. And that master control is going to be at the base of my character. I'm going to just make it large enough. I'm going to move it back a little bit so that's kind of the center of the wheel. Let me just do it from the side view here. So I'm going to just align it perfectly with the wheel. There we go. And I'm gonna again say modify freeze transformations on it. That way I'm gonna call it main control or master control. Then I'm going to duplicate that one, and I'm going to create another one that's going to be the root. So I'm going to duplicate that controller, and the duplication I'm going to just snap it to that root join, and I'm going to scale it up. I'm going to modify freeze transformation so the values go back to 0. I'm going to make sure we center pivot point. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to duplicate it again, and that one I'm going to move it to my waist here. Let me just do it here. I'm going to just hide the geometry because it's getting a little bit harder to move them. So I don't have hold the V key, V as in Victor. I'm going to snap it to that joint. I'm going to actually rotate it a little bit to match my orientation there. I'm going to modify freeze transformations. That way values go to 0, but it's now aligned to the position of the character. I'm going to duplicate that one more time. Actually, I need to shrink it a little bit. Not that. Let me just get the perspective here. And then we just shrink this component a little bit, but I'm going to just make it a bit smaller by just changing the vertices of it. Let me turn off joints and geometry. That way I don't select anything else but just the controllers. I'm going to just shrink it down a little bit there. That's the controllers for his waist. And then I'm going to go and duplicate that one. And this one I'm going to move it, holding V again, to the neck. I'm going to just modify that one again, to rotate it a little bit, and modify freeze transformations. So values go to 0. I'm going to create a couple more, but these ones are going to be for the shoulders and the arms. Let me just create a brand new one here. I may duplicate this one only. That's flat. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to move it and snap it to the shoulder. I'm going to rotate it. If I hold the J key, I can rotate in increments and precise increments. Let me just do it there. I'm going to shrink it down. Again, modify freeze transformations. I'm going to duplicate that one, hold V, and then I'm going to rotate that one to match the orientation of my joint. And then I'm going to say modify freeze transformations. And I'm not going to do one for the wrist because I don't need it. If you needed to put a hand movement, you'll just do the same thing for the hand. I'm going to duplicate this guy to the other side. I'm going to move it over. That one doesn't change. And then I'm going to simply just duplicate this one and do the same thing for the other one. Duplicate that one, snap it up over here, rotate it around a little bit so that it matches the orientation of the joint. I'm going to say modify freeze transformation for it. And I'm going to just create another one for the antenna. And the antenna, I'm going to grab again this guy. I'm going to duplicate that, Control D to duplicate it. I'm going to go all the way to the antenna. That one I'm going to snap it to the antenna joint, which is pressing V, and then snap it to that joint. If it doesn't work there, you can go to the side view, hide the polygons, and then hold the V. You should be able to move it there. If you grab it from the center, it'll go to the right location. I'm going to just rotate it around this direction so that it rotates minus 90 degrees so that I know it's certain. I'm going to shrink it down here. There we go. Modify freeze transformations on it. And let me see. I'm going to go to perspective view here. Yeah, let me show my geometry. Okay, so I have those. And actually, I'm going to create a couple for the ears as well. So let me do those for the ears. I'm going to create couple of joins for the ears, but I'm getting those. So same thing is going to be just a join that is going to be right in the center of the ear. Enter. I'm going to duplicate the same effect on that one. I'm just create another one here on this other side. I could duplicate the join too. Let me do the duplication of the join better. I'm going to create, oh, I got to turn on this one here. There we go. That join is by itself here, not that one actually is here. I'm going to duplicate it, Control D, move it to match the location right there on the other ear. You're going to modify freeze transformations on it. This one is going to be his right ear joint, and the other one is going to be the left ear joint. And those are going to become children of the head joint. Let me just hide the polygons, so it's going to be children of this one, and that one is going to be child of that one too. Okay, and I'm going to actually create a couple of controllers for those. I'm going to duplicate this one. So duplicate and hold a V to snap it to that one. I'm going to shrink it down a tiny bit. Modify freeze transformations, of course. And then I'm going to duplicate it one more time. And then hold V to snap it to the other ear. And modify freeze transformations. And then I'm going to rename all of those controllers so that they make some sense. So this one has a name already, main. This one we called it, it's going to be the root. Control. And then this one I'm going to call it the waist. Control. I'm calling it control because I have a waist joint, so I don't want to get confused with it. I'm going to call this one the head. Control. And then antenna. Control. And then of course left and right ear controls. Left underscore ear underscore control. And then right underscore ear control. Okay, now I gotta do the left and the right arms. So this one's gonna be the left underscore shoulder control, and this one's going to be the left elbow control, and right shoulder control, and right elbow. So it's key to have everything named properly. That way we don't have any questions about things when we have them here. Let me make sure that we can increment and save here. And that way I have a good second version of this file. All right, so now we just need to connect those controllers to our joints. Again, we are not going to animate joints, we're going to animate controllers. That's why we have them. But we need to have a connection between the controllers. So let me hide the top geometry better. And I'm going to generate connections from these controllers to these joints. So from each controller to each joint, I'm going to just create constraints. I'm going to be a panning constraint, and the panning constraint is going to do only rotation, not translation. I'm going to add that one. Why only rotation, not translation? Because I want the controller to be able to rotate the thing, but not to move it. I can move the controller won't move it. What moves it is going to be the rotation of the previous one or the whole thing. So we'll see in a minute, that will make sense. So then I'm going to do the same thing for all of them very quickly. Let me just do the constraint, parent constraint. You select the controller first, the joint second. Not translation, just rotate. my maintain offset just in case I don't have it pivoting correctly, although it should be pivoting correctly. That one. And then I'm going to do this one, control the ear. This one controls the other ear. This one controls the antenna. This one controls the head. Let's see, did I do those yet? I have not. Okay, so that one controls the shoulder. That one controls the elbow. This one controls the waist. This one is going to control the root, and be careful when selecting the wheel joint, the root. And this one will not control anybody. Okay, so also I need to generate a relationship. Right now they are rotating and they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They rotate everything, but of course if you rotate this one, for example, you see that one is wanting to continue the rotation of the original controller, so that's not correct yet. And the reason for that is because I need to make just the same way the joints have a hierarchy. I need to create a hierarchy for all the curves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from the outside and inside to create that hierarchy. So I'm going to start from this shoulder is going to be driven by the elbow is going to be driven by the shoulder. So I'm going to press P on my keyboard. So just make a parent-child relationship. So when I click this one, the other one is selected. That way, when I rotate this, the whole arm goes with it. I'm going to do the same thing with this one to the head, that one to the head, and that one to the head as well. Now this one to that shoulder. So I have those now, and I have now this one needs to be a child, of course, of the waist, and then this one becomes a child of that same waist too, and then this one, of course, becomes a child of that waist. That way, if I move this controller up here, the whole upper body of my character moves with it. And of course, this one becomes a child of the root. So now if I grab this root and I want to generate my whole character to back up or go forward, I'll be able to do that. Now we need to connect the geometry to those joints. And we're going to do it in a simple way by just simply creating a binding connection or skinning connection from the joint to each part individually. I'm not going to do it to the whole skeleton because we're going to just be animating components. So I'm going to be selecting this component, this joint, to that part of the body. I'm going to make sure to bind skin. I'm going to open it up and make sure I don't do it to the joint hierarchy, but just to the selected joint. That way, I just apply that one. That way, when I grab this one, that piece is going to move with that controller. I'm going to do the same thing for all of them. So this joint drives that piece of geometry. Same thing, apply. I'm going to do the other arm. So that joint drives that. That joint drives that. This joint is going to drive the antenna. The head joint. Sorry, let me do the ear first. This joint is going to do that ear, and this joint is going to do that ear. That way, these guys should be able to move that antenna. Now, I didn't pivot those correctly. Let me just correct that quickly. I'm going to unbind these ones. So I'm going to unbind the skin. Delete history, yes. I'm going to unbind this other one. And let me look at the joints from the side view. Let me do it here actually. I'm going to turn on my geometry. And I look at the joint, and the joint is not placed correctly. But the joint now, it's constrained by that object. So I'm going to actually have to delete the constraint and place it correctly. That way I can fix that problem. I turn off my geometry here. Quickly fix this one, open up the constraint. The constraint is the little node, a little chain node that appears there, so I can fix it. Now I'm gonna grab both joints. I'm gonna move them back to, I'm gonna hold my V key to try to snap them to the center of those ears the best I can, making sure they have not moved. And of course I'm gonna pivot those controllers to the new placement of the joints. So I press V and then snap it to that one, and then this one, snap it to that one, and I'm going to freeze transformations of these guys again. I'm going to freeze transformations of this guy, and of course I need to do the constraint because I deleted it. So panning constraint on rotation, not translation, apply. I'm going to do this other guy here too. Apply. That's a little mistake that I had there. That is always good to have things correctly oriented or correctly placed. All right, so let me continue now working with my joints influence on this guy. So I'm going to continue binding the skin, join to this object, skin, bind skin, and then same with the other one. From that join to the geometry, skin, bind, skin. Okay, and then I'm going to do, let's see, did I do the head yet? Let me test it out. No, I have not done the head yet, so I'm going to do the head join to the head geometry, bind skin, and then of course the body join to the body component. So make sure that when you're binding, it's just to select the joint. So apply. All right, let me just make sure I test it. Yeah, it seems to be going correctly. And now I need to figure out the wheel. And the wheel, of course, it works slightly differently because I have a wheel joint, and the wheel joint is separate from the rest of the chain. And the wheel joint, of course, needs to be rotating the wheel. So before I bound the wheel, I'm going to create a controller for that wheel. So I'm going to grab this one, this root controller. Actually, that one has everybody else there. I'm actually create a duplicate for it. I'm going to grab this main one. I'm going to duplicate that one. I'm going to snap it to the center of the wheel. So I'm going to move it and I snap it to the center of the wheel there. Let me just make sure that it's snapping correctly in the right location. Pressing V, there it is. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees in Z. I'm going to scale it up. So this one is the one that's going to control the rotation of the wheel. So I can animate that wheel. I'm going to modify freeze transformation on that one. And that one, of course, is going to be driving the rotation of the wheel joint. So I'm going to click on the controller. This one is going to be called wheel control. And I'm going to click on the wheel joint. I'm going to create the same constraint, panning constraint on rotation only. Add. That way this one is going to control that joint. When I rotate it, that wheel is going to rotate there. And that means that I can bind this wheel joint to the wheels themselves. So when I got the wheels have a centerpiece and the ball itself. Let me just make sure that it's all correctly selected there. That is correct. Let me just make sure I do it one more time. The wheel to the ball and to that part and to that part. I didn't want to select those curves. I'm going to just say skin, bind skin. Again, it has to be under selected joints, bind the skin. That way, if I do this one, let me turn on here the wireframes, you can see it. And I try to rotate that wheel, you can see the wheel rotating with it. Okay, so we're almost there. There are a couple of things that need to be fixed here, or not fixed, but added. And it is that, of course, the wheel, the root control and the wheel control are isolated. So if I try to move this guy, the wheel control stays behind, and this guy is not moving everybody with it. And it's not because I don't want to actually move my guy with that. I'm going to move it with this one. But before I move it with that one, I'm going to create a duplicate version of this guy. And this one, I call it a master control, master place. I'm going to call it this one master control. So this one is for placement. I'll explain in a minute why. So that means that this guy and the wheel are going to become children of the main controller. That way the main controller will drive everybody, right? And that guy is going to be driven by a master one. So if I try to move my guy around, and probably just change the name of of the shape of my master so I don't get confused which one I'm animating with. But if I try to move it, my character doesn't go with it yet. And the reason for that is because I missed one thing, and we need to correct it, we need to improve it, is that these guys are moving, and this guy should be controlling the rotation of the character, and he does control the rotation of the character. So if you pivot like that, he will pivot, but he's not moving the character. And the reason for that is because that master is generating a constraint. We did a parent constraint on the join, on the root join. You can see the root join, scroll down here and click on the parent constraint. That is the one that is receiving that root join. But the root constraint actually is created a constraint on rotation, and you need to actually add movement to that constraint too. So I'm going to delete that constraint so I can correct that problem. I'm going to grab this controller again. I'm going to select the root join, and this time I'm going to create a constraint, parent constraint still, but this one I'm going to create translate to it. I'm going to apply that one. And I'm going to do this exactly the same to the wheel that needs to be moved by the wheel controller. So I'm going to select the wheel. I'm going to delete the constraint that the wheel had. I'm going to delete that one. I'm going to select the controller to the wheel joined. This time, create a parent constraint for translate and rotate of it. I'm going to apply that. I'm going to do that. So now, if I go and try to move my character, the whole character goes with it. Oh, I have one little piece missing there that I have to connect in a minute. So I'm going to just make that piece. This piece should be bound by the whole body. So I'm going to select that one, and then bind that skin there. Let me try moving it again. So that one moves. If I try moving this one, the wheel doesn't move with it because the wheel is part of the separator connection. But this gives me the opportunity to exaggerate a little bit of the motion of the guy. Mostly it's for rotation, but I could also exaggerate, the placement. So let's say he jumps and then he comes back to it. So that's a little bit of a, how can I know where to bring it back to? Because I need to bring it back to 0, and 0 is the main position. The last thing I'm going to do with these guys here is that this one, I'm going to change the shape of it. And the reason for that is because that one is not going to be my animation controller. This one we're going to just grab it here, change the shape of it. I'm going to grab the other ones, make them a little bit larger. You can do any shape you want, but the idea with that one is that it is intended for placement of my character, that's the masters. Let's say you want this character to be on a different location somewhere else. You will move it there, and then you would animate the other ones inside of it. So the ones are just simply for placing. Let's say you need the character to be riding on a train. So this one will be attached to the train. So the character will go with the train, but you still have the freedom of having the character moving by itself. So I'm going to bring this back to 0 again. The key element is that all of it, if you put 0 on it, it should be all good. Actually, this one I had a scale value that I have to freeze transformations on it. So I'm going to do that just right there. I'm going to click on that component, modify freeze transformations. So everything goes back to 0 and 1, and still my character works correctly. And I have now my whole character ready to be animated and placed. Make sure that when you animate, you turn off geometry, so that way you don't animate the geometry, just animate your controllers. Okay, that's pretty much it. At the end of it, you end up having a whole group of things that you could group all in the same thing. I'm gonna call it robot. That way, you know, you have the controller for animation would be this one, and this one is just simply for placement. Okay, that's pretty much it. Hopefully this be a good guide for you to rig your basic character.